Ladies and gentlemen, The Spy Who Came In From the Cold by David Cornwell, better known as John Le Carre, his pen name. It is a masterpiece. It really is. It's a book that trusts the reader to be intelligent enough to follow. It's a book where, despite there being hardly any action, is absolutely gripping. You think of a story about spies and you're thinking, oh, espionage, you know, people running after each other with guns or car chases or the kind of thing you see in James Bond or Jason Bourne or The Day of the Jackal, for example, to name some other espionage books. But in this book, John Le Carre writes a book about people having conversations in rooms, or conversations inside cars, or conversations inside a prison cell, or conversations inside a cafe or a restaurant or a bar. There's maybe one very, very quick action beat near the beginning of the book, or at the very beginning of the book, and then one at the very end, and that's it. And in between, it's people talking. And even when the people are talking, they're not saying what they mean. But what he does is, John Le Carre, he trusts you as a reader to read between the lines. Just like the characters have to read between the lines to try to outsmart each other or to try to understand each other. John Le Carre also trusts you, the reader, to read between the lines. He trusts your intelligence. And in my opinion, that's why it's a work of genius. It's about, I don't want to give away too many spoilers, it's about a spy called Alec Leamas. And Alec is posted into Berlin because during the Cold War, there was the Berlin Wall, built in the early 60s and didn't come down until 1989. And of course, there was East Germany, West Germany. And it's about which spies have been recruited to which side, bluff, double bluff, triple bluff. It's really gripping. And there are many twists and turns, especially towards the end. And you don't know who's on whose side. And it just keeps you gripped. And it trusts you to follow the story. And you do follow the story. And in the end, when everything is revealed, it's like a gut punch, but it's also a reward for sticking the story out and for just trusting in the process. Highly, highly recommended. I came to this through, I'd never read, so this is my first John Le Carre book to ever read. I had seen, of course, the classic TV series with Alec Guinness called Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. And then there was a follow-up TV series called Smiley's People, also starring Alec Guinness as George Smiley. And then they made a film version starring Gary Oldman as George Smiley, stepping into the shoes of Alec Guinness. But I had never actually read Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, or I had never read Smiley's People, or any John Le Carre novel. And I thought, rather than start by reading Tinker Tailor, because that's the TV show that I'd seen, I thought, let me read a story I don't know. And this is one of his earliest works. And it really is a masterpiece. I think it's a work of genius. Is it as fun to read, for example, is it as fun to read as, say, an Ian Fleming James Bond novel? Or Frederick Forsyth, The Day of the Jackal? Or Robert Ludlum, The Bourne Identity? Yes and no. This is gripping to read in a different way because you know that you're exercising your grey cells and you're gripped by the conversations and trying to read between the lines and know what's going to happen next. So it doesn't need all the action beats that you get in those other novels with those other authors. And yeah, I'm so glad that I read this first. I do want to read Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy next. And also, there is a film version of The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, starring Richard Burton, which I have subsequently seen, and it is very authentic to the book, and it's a brilliant film. I highly recommend you read the book and see the Richard Burton movie. And what I would say, even the title of the film, or the title of the book, is brilliant because it can be a metaphor, because it doesn't just mean, if we think somebody who's come in from the cold, we usually mean that they've been outcast and then allowed to come back. But it can also mean, because being a spy, especially the way it's depicted by John Le Carre in this novel, being a spy is quite heartless work, or cold-blooded work. A cold-blooded profession where there's no feelings involved, and you have to shut off your feelings and shut off your humanity. And what's brilliant and what's ironic about the title of this book is that John Le Carre is also saying the spy who came in from the cold is not just physically coming in from the cold, but metaphorically to come in from the cold in terms of, can you regain your humanity? Can you regain your warm-heartedness? So coming in from the cold in that sense. Brilliant title for a book. Brilliant book. Highly recommended.